welcome. I'm Peggy, and I hope you'll stay tuned today because we have some wonderful and valuable and helpful information, and it can be life-changing and life-saving. And we're going to talk about cancer. And we have somebody here who has given her life, really, to helping other people. And I'm just thrilled to have Gina Franco here. And of course, this is a long title, but she's a nurse practitioner, and of course, she's here on behalf of the Greenville Hospital System. And she manages, now let me see if I get this right, she manages the Center for Integrative Oncology and Survivorship.
Yes, you did it.
Okay, all right. And that's a powerful word.
A lot of words.
Because when you're diagnosed and you're given that word of cancer, it's terrifying.
Very terrifying. And there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Because you don't know what you're facing or what you're going to have to go through. And it affects not just the person, but the whole family.
Yes. And you're considered a survivor from the day of diagnosis onward. Many patients think that they're only a survivor when they're done with their treatment. But the most acceptable definition is from the day of diagnosis, you are considered a cancer survivor. Now, there's other definitions that also say that we should also include the support system, because those family members or support system undergo as much stress, it might be different stress, as the cancer survivor. So the other thing that we found out in our research nationally is that we not only need to be supporting the patient, but we need to be supporting their support system as well.
Okay, let's back up to it seems to me and to most people that you're hearing more and more, and we all know somebody who either has had cancer or does have cancer. It seems, I don't know, even 20 years ago, you didn't hear so much about it. And now it's even children, more and more. And is it because we're improving ways of finding it in the first place, or is it so much more and more happening because of the environment we live in, or what?
So there's a lot of things that come into play when we say cancer is more prevalent, or we see it more.
Yeah.
So we've got a bigger population of people. So number one, 30, 40 years ago, our population was smaller.
And people are living longer.
Okay, so then that's the second part, is that we're also living longer, and cancer, the biggest risk factor for cancer is age.
Oh, really?
It's the largest risk factor. And then the other part of it is that we also have better detection rates for earlier stage. So now we have patients that are being detected with much earlier kinds of cancer. Their outcome is better so that they're living longer.
So the earlier the detection, the better the chance of the person to beat it.
Yes. In fact, when we started really pushing for women to have mammograms and have them according to guidelines, the detection rate first went up higher, but then it went down when we looked at the actual recurrence rate, because those cancers were being diagnosed at an earlier stage. So it was getting that message out that women needed to get screening mammograms, and they needed to do them at a frequency that was recommended according to what their age was. But then we actually started getting earlier breast cancers where the cure rates are better. So then a lot of people think, well, then it's maybe because it's in all of these families that there's some relationship. But in fact, there's only about 5 to 10% known inherited mutations that we can say that they inherited that from their mother or father.
So cancer is not something you inherit.
The majority of them are not.
If you've had members of your family who have had various kinds of cancer, does that mean that you have a bigger chance of getting it?
It could. So there's kind of it has to be like a constellation of things that happen. And so there's certain scores to that, according to whether someone had breast cancer in your family or ovarian cancer, and then what age they were, if they're a primary member, if they were a distant member, and even what age. For instance, all male breast cancer patients should get a genetic counseling and genetic testing done, because their chance of having that being an inherited event are much higher. Okay. And so male breast cancer is only about 1% of all breast cancer.
Now, of course, men have prostate cancer. We hear a lot about that now.
Yes, yes. So there's certain syndromes that can be related with certain types of cancers too. So that's all about screening. All cancers are genetic events, but only a small proportion of them have known hereditary or inherited defects that we at least know about at this point. And that's why you should have genetic counseling before genetic testing, so that you know that you're getting the right test. For instance, if you're a Medicare patient and you have breast cancer, you only have one chance to get genetic testing, so you really need to get the right test. So we do see at certain areas where they just do a genetic test, but you really need to have a certified genetic counselor see those patients first with a medical oncologist with a subspecialty in genetic cancer genetics to make sure you're getting the right test too.
So they're finding it earlier, which is a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're improving the ways of treatment.
Yes, very much so.
So that somebody who has cancer, it isn't a death sentence.
No, in fact, most of the time it's not. The majority of time it's not. So, but we have this fear. And the other thing is that there's a fair amount of things that happen in the treatments. The treatments are not that easy. And so there are things that happen with the patient that we see, and of course sometimes we remember the worst cases or the worst stories, but most patients, after they have their treatment, they can go on and live a fairly normal life. Now we call this the new normal because they're not going to be exactly the same as when they were before that treatment, because there are side effects, there even are long-term side effects. So that's where the Center for Integrative Oncology and Survivorship comes in, where we're actually looking at a whole platform of care after their treatment. We do see some patients during treatment, but for the most part, this is how do we help people with their emotional and physical well-being after their treatment.
Okay, now you brought this, and it's very interesting. The next front in cancer care. Mm-hmm. And I guess hospitals and healthcare all over the country are trying to improve. And here in the upstate of South Carolina, our Greenville hospital system has stepped out, and they are on the new front of care.
Yes, we made national headlines, and we do pretty much routinely now at the Cancer Institute. And one of our platforms is the CIOS, or the Center for Integrative Oncology and Survivorship. So what that means is that the leadership at the hospital has also embraced the fact that we need to do more for cancer patients. And that's kind of a national thing. Our patient advocacy groups in cancer have been saying this for a while, that they needed more assistance afterwards. The number one physical complaint after treatment is fatigue, and the number one psychological complaint is fear of recurrence. So we have people that aren't sleeping, we have people that have all kinds of issues, and yet when they're done with their treatment, and we've done this as a medical community, have been so happy that our cure rates are higher, that we haven't always addressed all of those other needs and really help people potentiate what they could be. Then the other side of that is that we also know that if we start helping lifestyles and habits, improving them, we can decrease recurrence rates, and we can decrease second cancers.
Okay. That's another whole book, and we're going to talk about that, because there are things we can do as we go through our lives day by day to lessen the chance of any severe illness, but so I want to talk about that from an expert. But when you talk about, first of all, the diagnosis, and the sooner you get diagnosed, if you have a problem, the better your chances of living a long, normal life. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So first of all, you have to be diagnosed with whatever kind of cancer and sometimes they used to call it the silent killer. I mean, sometimes you don't really hurt, so that you'd say, oh, there's something wrong, and you go to a doctor, because it's there, but you're not aware that it's there.
Yes, that's true.
And that's one of the big dangers.
It is. I think, though, we're starting to realize that it's probably also our culture and what we're doing and what we think is okay and what is normal that probably isn't okay as a society. So if you talk to people and they say, well, I went to my doctor and my blood pressure was good and my weight was the same, and so they said I was good and I won't see them for 6 more months. And in fact, those probably are not the right things to be thinking about in our own minds, as that's a good report card, because they might have been on 1 or 2 blood pressure pills. They might have been 20 or 30 pounds overweight. They might not have really moved in the last 6 days, or maybe not even been exercising in the last 6 months. And those now we're seeing are as important as early detection and treatment. So you can decrease breast cancer recurrence by 50%, colon cancer by 60%, just by doing a formal exercise program, which is not movement. Movement is walking. Exercise is a much bigger step.
Oh, yeah, you just made my day.
But you think we were...
So just taking a nice walk, and you think, oh, I'm doing something good for myself. You tell me that doesn't do it.
No, the wall walking, if you're doing something and you can talk and carry on a conversation, you're probably not doing any kind of moderate exercise.
Gina. Oh, okay. So we have to watch our diet, the intake of tobacco, cigarettes.
That's huge. That's just, including even being around smoke, even passive smoke. So I mean, there's a lot of things with regard to smoking. And we hear this and we become numb to it. You know, like I've got to eat right, I've got to have a plant-based diet, I've got to move. But the problem is if you look at our lifestyle and you look at a generation or two ago, they were our grandparents were hunter-gatherers. I mean, they were pretty much physically, they were walking down the street a block to park their car, and it wasn't, it was not unsafe to walk to your car. We don't move as a society, and we're tied to computers. So it's really looking at where we are as a culture, and that's as important as some of the other things that are, related to cancers in terms of the relationship.
Well, they were called upon to do things that required physical activity.
They washed dishes, they went up and downstairs.
Just push a button, And so we're killing ourselves.
We are, but see, and we can't just give people this thing, you're okay. It's now, how do we be creative to help them move? Because it's not always that safe to go outside and walk all the time, particularly if you're alone or if it's dark out. So it's like things like a pedometer. So at least you know whether you got your 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day. So that's movement. But then also maybe going to a gym or joining these programs. The Ys around here have excellent programs, and the Silver Sneakers for some of the senior citizens is very good at the Ys. We have our own life center for people that are in our area. And we need programs, because the big thing is we just can't tell people to do things. We have to have things to support them to create change.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, so what we've established is that early detection is important.
Yes.
And after that, there is treatment out there, there is hope out there, and you can live a good life, and that cancer is not a death sentence.
No, we're both living proof.
I am a cancer survivor. And with a lot of love, good care, and of course a prayer now and then, you can do wonders. We're going to be right back, and we have some more good information for you.